It's the Waiting for Next Year.com podcast, and my next guest is proof that if you bother me enough, you can get on the show.
Absolutely.
Tony Mazur.
Not Mazur.
Rhymes
with laser. It's a nice ethnic name. I live in Cleveland, and we kind of attach ourselves to these, to the skis and the Witzes and all these other strange Polish names.
Well, and this is one of the things about meeting somebody in the modern era. I, barely ever heard your name spoken in my entire life.
No, you just see people just talking crap on Twitter about it.
Yeah, you used to leave negative comments on our webpage way back in the day.
Yeah, I remember.
You kind of grew up in the Cleveland sports scene and commenting and interacting, and you've never been afraid to make some enemies.
No, I have not. But though I did support you guys with the Tom Izzo thing.
Picked the wrong horse there.
Well, I mean, in fairness, I said, how can, and this was 5 years ago, and I didn't really understand until a couple of years ago how stories are truly broken.
Right.
And I'm like, how can't an online outlet be able to break a story? Until I realized how stories are broken. If you're Ray Farmer and you have something going on, and who do you want to break a story? Do you want Daryl Ryder and Mary Kay Cabot, or do you want Adam Schefter, Adam Kaplan, and some of these? And I'm like, so at the time, I'm like, why can't they get a tip? Why not? And then I realized it's like, whatever. So,
well,
but I supported the fact that you guys were able to, at least try to be proactive and be more than just a sports blog.
Well, and it's not like we licked our finger and put it in the air to see which way the wind was blowing. Yeah. We were green, but we had an actual tip, and somebody actually thought that news was true.
Yeah.
And then somehow we were married to the outcome, which is totally different nowadays because nobody is married to the outcome anymore, because people just assume, well, somebody had an agenda, somebody thought this, and then the facts changed, and people change. I change my mind all the time. You change your mind all the time. Different people I say different things to people. If everybody in my personal life held me to the things that I said all the time, I would look like the most inconsistent jackass on the face of the earth.
Well, see how quickly things have gone in 5 years when it comes to accessing information. And we talked about, whatever it is now. What was it? The last year, was it I'm forgetting. Who was it that claimed they broke the LeBron story? Was it like a barber, or it was like some?
Oh, there was a dog walker. A personal trainer.
Yeah, personal trainer. That was it.
Because I thought we all know who really broke it. It was Joe Lowe with the plane.
Well, of course.
Who turned out to be right.
He was right, and I said justice for Joe Lowe.
It was hysterical how even Dan Gilbert called him. I think he called him I don't know what he actually called him, but it was like a clown or something. And it turned out the plane story was 100% correct.
Of course it was.
Which is really funny.
That's what happens when you have a tip and someone's like, "Hey, I was looking at the takeoffs from Pontiac Airport or whatever, and I think Dan Gilbert's plane's heading to South Florida." And really? Okay. And then ran with it, and he got made fun of, but God bless Joe Lowe.
See, well,
Joe and I have gone way back too. We've done a lot of free broadcasting work.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that too, because for a young man, you're not even 30 yet. You've got a long history in sports talk.
Yeah.
But before we get there, I'm going to let you shamelessly plug the first of three things, because if we hit them all three at once, nobody will remember any of them.
Well, no one's going to remember the one.
Well, let's start with the first one.
All right, on September 30th at 7:00 at the Toledo Funny Bone, I'm going to be doing a show there. Which of course, this is what shows the hierarchy of comedians. Is if you're doing Friday or Saturday night at Madison Square Garden or selling out a theater, you're doing the weekends. The true test to a comedian and how good they are is if they're working weekends. So next Wednesday, I'll be at the Toledo Funny Bone.
And you're now doing, for those who don't know, Tony is now doing stand-up.
Yes. I am a stand-up comedian because, and to be honest, I started doing stand-up because a couple of people, I knew a bunch of comics and everything, and they're like, well, you're funny, you can do it. And I said, why? And they're like, well, you're funny on Twitter. It's like, that's not the same thing. And it didn't really work out for, what's his name, Rob Delaney.
Yeah.
Just being funny on Twitter doesn't make you a good comic. So, but I'm like, all right, I finally did it. I wasn't working in radio at the time. I was bored. I was depressed, and I needed to do something. And I've just kind of stayed with it because let's be honest, in radio, it's great working there and everything. But then, of course, you never know. On a Friday, they're like, well, yeah, we sold the company. You're all fired, and I need something to fall back upon before I hit the bottle.
Right. And I was gonna make a crack, but it didn't always take a sale of a company for you to move on from certain companies. No, certainly not.
Yeah, definitely poison, I guess, in a sense. But the other gigs
I won't blame you for Digital Sports Network.
No, well, oh boy, the Digital Sports Network, that was a treat and a half.
For those who don't remember, Digital Sports Network was the online-only streaming sports talk, which was aligned with Cleveland.com before they were going by Northeast Ohio Media Group, I believe. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of people that you know.
It was a who's who.
Chuck Booms, Les Levine.
Here, I'll give you the
Bud Shaw.
I know the lineup just automatically.
All right, let's do it.
From 6 to 9, it was Mike Cairns and Bill Baranke did the morning show.
I forgot all about that one.
Then it was Brian Fowler, who is now on 99.5 with Leanne.
That's a country station, right?
That's a country. Yeah, he's doing country now. He's not with Joe anymore. And,
got it.
Yeah, it was Brian Fowler, Greg Kazarek, and Matt Lodi did the midday show. I used to produce that. Then it was Have a Bud with Les, Bud Shaw and Les Levine. And then it was Harry Pitsanis and Chuck Booms. Then, and Paul Ratto was on the show for 2 days.
Oh, for 2 days.
For 2 days. He was wearing his suspenders. He looked like the Bob's Big Boy statue. And then it was after that, it was Kendall Lewis and Daryl Ryder. And then the nighttime show with Joe Lull, Ken Silverstein, and Bob Karlovic. So here's the problem. Those are recognizable names. Basically, everyone's worked at WKNR at that time, and you knew the names. Here's the problem. That's a lot of people there. You got to pay them. Amazing how that happens.
Preferably with sponsors' money.
Well, yeah. What sponsors are we gonna? How many Susie's Soup ads are we gonna do for that? And it was great the first 2 weeks, and then it was that Friday, and it was like, hey, what's going on with paychecks? They're like, ooh, yeah, about that. Can you come back like Monday or maybe Thursday? I think we might have something figured out. It was a month and a half before I got my first paycheck, and it bounced.
Oh, that's something special.
Oh, it was great because I was going to Columbus, and I went to I remember the Winchester, the concert hall in Lakewood, and I went there that night, and I'm spending money, and then I realized the next morning that I get my check bounced, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? They're like, oh yeah, we'll get this figured out. That was a long 4 months.
Yeah,
with the Digital Sports Network, it felt like we were working there 4 years.
Yeah, well, and it was a much ballyhooed launch, and so a million people have already talked about what went wrong.
Yeah.
But was there like a moment of relief when it was finally over, and you knew at least you weren't going to be chasing those paychecks?
No. The only time I felt closure is when I heard about the fans starting. And I felt, all right, there's finally something going to pop up, but...
Because you couldn't head back to KNR?
No, I'm going to go to KNR. They weren't hiring over there. And I was at that point where I'm looking at...
Because you interned at KNR, right?
I started there, yeah.
Okay.
I started there. I worked there for about 9 months or something. I was the super intern. I was the guy that all the other interns were looking up to the intern, so... Something about free work about that, but I started there in 2006, and when I was 18 years old, as soon as I got out of high school, I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I called up Rover, and I'm calling Doogie, and probably interrupted her during the shizzy. We're doing the shizzy today, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to be an intern on the show. And they're like, yeah, we got our spots filled, but, we'll keep you in mind for the summer semester. I'm like, I don't want to wait summer. I mean, it's November. I'm looking forward to trying to start in January.
Right.
And a guy named John Kersey, he's a teacher over at Tri-C. says, hey, Jason Gibbs is a good friend of mine. He's the promotions guy, over at WKNR. You want to give it a shot? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. I grew up listening to Jeff Sindelar and Bill Needle and all those other guys, Greg Brinda and Kendall Lewis. I'm like, yeah, I'd love to be a part of this. And I started there when Craig Karmazin first bought the company. So okay. I think the reason I never ended up getting hired over at KNR was most of the employees thought they were going to get their jobs lost. A lot of them, and a lot of them did. And one of them being, because there was this whole sweepstakes when Bruce Drennan was in prison. Bruce Drennan was sending letters to a lot of people, and he was talking to people, and he's telling about all these big things that he has when he gets out of prison. And everyone thought they were going to be a part of the golden ticket for Bruce Drennan, and it just ended up being Gene Winters. And there were a lot of people pissed off about that. That they thought Bruce.
I had no idea any of that was going on.
Oh yeah. Like a lot of people were like, there were names like Neil Bender, if you remember. I have some other friends of mine, well, exactly, and they didn't get their fair shot. There's a lot of people in this town who did not get their fair shot, have been told to cut their teeth in Wyoming or Idaho or leave the business altogether, because it really is. It's very difficult to try and get a job in this town now.
Well, and it's double as good as it used to be now that there are two stations.
Yeah.
Because
except the problem is at the one station they're just hiring the same people who got fired from the old station.
Well, right, but at least there's a second station, I guess.
Yeah,
there's a second opportunity.
Right? Yeah, there's one station talks about food all the time, and the other one is, I don't know, whatever.
So you had experience, quite a bit of experience in the beginning of 92.3. Mm-hmm. So how much of all the recent, the scene story and all the different things, how did that ring to your ears?
It really was nothing that surprised me. When it really was written, I don't know who did the article for Scene. I mean, it was well written, but it was just kind of stuff that a lot of people on Twitter who complain about what's going on they already knew. Like, it didn't shed any new light on the situation. You're like, all right, well, this guy is this and this guy's that.
And in fairness, the audience for that article was more about like the people who pick it up at the coffee shop, the people who read it online. Yeah, they're not hanging out on Twitter talking about sports talk radio.
Yeah, exactly. They're looking for a bar napkin and they find a Scene magazine. And
how dare you? Yeah, how dare you? I do the Scene podcast. You son of a bitch.
Sorry, Vince. My bad, Vince.
You're burning bridges even before you walk over.
Absolutely. Well, I did do stuff on Scene for
we'll
4 episodes, but no, it didn't. It didn't surprise me. There was a lot of one of my problems with the Fan, and this isn't sour grapes. I even said this at the time, and a lot of employees felt this way. I won't name names, but it was supposed to be that new option, this fresh option in sports talk. With Sports Talk Cleveland I worked at and Digital Sports Network, it was proof that there is an audience outside of WKNR. And you needed somebody you needed a station. And for years it was rumored, we need an FM option. 106.5 was one of them. They were going to flip when it was mix, and then they ended up going, to basically a somewhat.
And it was a well-known playbook in other markets because sports is easy to sell. It's got a defined audience. Yep. It's got a dedicated audience. And the advertisers, I mean, it's not a conundrum who you approach to advertise on a sports talk radio station. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was clear that they needed to do that, and you wanted a team like the Browns and the Indians wanted that FM option, and you weren't just going to have a whole Clear Channel cluster that had all the teams.
Right.
And CBS wanted to get in the market, and they realized their alternative iPod station was not making that much money.
And I still feel sorry for the people who miss the music option on 92.3. I really do. Yeah. I have sympathy for them. But that kind of radio lives in other universes, like the iPod, Spotify, now
or even
Apple.
College radio.
I mean, but it's not. You don't need somebody to program that for you in an active way. It's playlist radio now.
Yeah, it really is, and I mean, well, a lot of radio is that way. Especially, it's basically country music is the only thing that's really the moneymaker on FM radio now, outside of sports talk. And the reason sports talk does so well is, of course, you hear the live reads, the constant Joe Bees and all these other live reads that are going on. they're sold and their ad rates are very low, so they can sell a bunch of them.
It's personality-driven radio, and they can still justify having a personality read the spots. But name a rock jock that doesn't just piss you off. You wouldn't want a rock jock to give a read for your commercial during a music bed or whatever, because they're interrupting the music now. They're doing the opposite of contributing to the content that you want to hear.
And that's where, with the fan, when it started, it was an idea, and I had heard about all the blogs and everything, and there were, whisper, is there going to be an FM sports station? What station is going to be on? And I knew what was going on a lot before a lot of people. I didn't tell them. A lot of the DSN people it was kind of like, it was the biggest kept secret. It's like, hey, have you heard about this FM station?
Right.
I think I read something about it. Everyone knew. And I was hired because of Chuck Booms, and I worked with Booms at DSN. I actually did a little bit with him at KNR years ago, but he didn't remember me. But Booms kind of took, yeah, of course.
That's funny.
He took me under his wing, and he's, Tone, I got some big things coming up for us. It's going to be great. And he mentioned something. He's like, Tone, I want you to be my producer. We're trying to do something in San Francisco, and you make your own jokes there. But and then after that, he's like, Tone, I got something bigger. It's going to be in town. You can't mention it to anybody, but just stay there, enjoy your summer. It's going to be great. And I knew exactly what it was. They were getting the Kiley and Booms show back together, because I read that Kiley was doing a show with Michael Irvin. The show ended, and I knew it was going to come together. And I'm thinking, like, what station? I'm like, it's got to be 92.3. I'm assuming CBS is going to do that. They'll just have to fire the Maxwell show.
Right.
Because they needed if they're going to have a morning show like that, you got to do what you got to do. So, but I knew it was coming together, and I thought at the time it was going to be that new, fresh option, and especially with someone like Ken Carman, who not a lot of people heard, but you'll never hear anybody say a bad thing about Ken.
I still don't know where Ken came from.
Ken,
because I never heard him. I never heard him before he was on 92.3, and then I did hear him, and I was like, wow, it's like one man and a mic, and it doesn't blow.
Ken he came up
ringing endorsement.
Yeah,
well, I know.
Of course, gotta love it, Ken. Ken worked in Akron. He went to Akron. He got a board op job down at Clear Channel in Akron, and he was. I think he was doing the news talk station that's down there, WHLO. And then he eventually graduated to doing, because he did play-by-play for Ashland College, and I think he did football and basketball, maybe volleyball, who knows. And he ended up getting a job doing the play-by-play for the Akron Arrows at the time. And he was the Arrows guy for a couple of years until Clear Channel was parting ways with some of their talent again. That was around that time when they just really started thinning the herds. And Ken didn't know what to do after that until Keith Kennedy calls him and says, hey, they're starting a station up in Cleveland. You might want to send your stuff. And he put it, he applied there, and he didn't think he was going to get the nighttime job. He thought he was going to be like maybe a board op or a weekend guy, or maybe even doing sports updates, and ended up being very fruitful for him. Yeah, and
now, of course, he's one half of the morning show, Kiley and Carman.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Kiley and Booms some more, because you worked with them. But then you moved to the afternoons.
Yep.
Just tell me about your experience with Kiley and Booms, and how shocked were you that and the Booms things appears to be a budget cut most of all.
Oh, of course it was. For anybody to think it was anything different, they're like, well,
there were so many people on Twitter who felt vindicated with all their.
Booms is gone, my gosh, and it's like, what did he say? And people are DMing me and texting me. I'm like, it's not what he said. He said everything on the air that you could possibly think of. It's not what he said. It was a budget thing, because CBS is looking to sell. It's the biggest kept secret. Of course they're looking to sell. They're getting out
and
of the
by
market.
Biggest, you mean worst.
Worst, yeah.
Yeah, worst kept secret.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little late and I'm tired.
That's all right.
But working with Booms got a hold of me and said, be his producer, and it ended up happening. And I was on there for a year, and what did that entail? Like, were you writing? I was doing basically everything but running the board. Meaning, I'm screening the phone calls, I'm booking the guests, I'm posting on the website.
Who sets up the topics every day? What's the production like the day before those guys show up to
before.
do.
Well, because what happens?
I'm asking the question. Don't mock my question. Just answer it.
Oh, I will.
No, I'm kidding.
The night before, Booms would go talk to the producers and goes over some of the music and some of the topics, and it's like, all right, the Indians beat the White Sox. All right, well, let's see, what can we do? Chicago. How about Sweet Home Chicago? How about let's do that? And then that's played in the morning as bumper music. And then Kiley talks over it, has no idea what the song is. And he'll go off to her and say, what song is this? It's like, it's Sweet Home Chicago, the Blues Brothers version. And he comes back and goes, Sweet Home Chicago, Indians with the big win over the White Sox. And so I would get there in the morning. And we started, it was August 29th, 2011. That was the Faniversary. And we got on the air, and I didn't know I was honestly hired for the full-time position until a couple days before. So I didn't have a huge Rolodex to book guests. And like from the get-go, it was like, all right, so I called Sam Ratigliano because I know him, and called a couple other people and got things going on through the week. But it was clear that what was going on, that I was Booms' guy. I was Booms' lackey for a little bit, which I was my own person. As you knew me before the station started.
Sure.
I was my own person, but I had the stigma of Chuck Booms around me. And people at the station felt that way too. So when I would get there in the morning, I'd get there at 4. I would put a rundown together on some of the topics and give Kiley stories. Not, hey, I sent these in your email. I would literally have to print these stories out and give him a Bible of stories where he's reading them. He gets there at 4:30, starts reading it. Chuck would get there at between 5:30 and 5:45, heard something on the radio, and he wants to talk about it. So he took the wheel, and all that, the 2 hours of prep that I did before the show was for naught. Because Chuck heard something on JT the Brick or DA or whoever was on the air, and they would spend 4 hours talking about that, and I'd say, well, I did 2 hours worth of work for nothing. And so I was on there for a year. It was just like some of the demands and the goalposts were changing and everything. I didn't like it. Talking about...
How are the mornings?
Oh, it's just brutal.
Is it just the worst thing in the world?
I mean, I'm doing mornings now, but it's I don't have... It was... What I thought were the mornings, it was more the stress and just the feeling of every day, knowing that Kevin Kiley didn't like me, knowing that management didn't like me, and then always feeling like every day is like going to be my last day.
All right, well, I'm going to get in big trouble if I don't ask this. Do you think you played any part in them not liking you, or was it just
a little bit, but I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that because they didn't like Booms either. He would raise holy hell off the air and stuff about endorsements or what have you, or whatever it could be. Him and Kiley would get into screaming matches, and it would be uncomfortable. It's like you're a kid and you're upstairs and you hear, and you go, what's going on? Oh, mom and dad are fighting. And it's like, what are they fighting about? And it's like, I don't even know. And then you go in there, you open the door, and you're just like, well, you're doing that. Well, you get here and I can't get a hold of you. And God, and I'm like, geez, all right, closing the door. And it's like, all right. And then 6 o'clock happens. Kiley and Booms show on 92.3 The Fan.
Yeah.
And it was just really, it was a weird year of working on that show. I voluntarily left because I couldn't take the mornings, couldn't take the stress. It was not, I didn't like who I was becoming. I was feeling sick and just up too late. I'd pop 2 melatonin, couldn't fall asleep, and it was just, my heart would race, and I'm like, I can't do this. Talked to Andy Roth, I said, I'd like to be a board op and work part-time. And he's like, really? He's like, all right, why not? So opening on Bull and Fox, and I was on Bull and Fox for a year. And I had a very good time. And honestly, at the Fan, when it comes to talking about a lot of the employees, I love them all. They're all great. I still talk to them all the time. I saw Andy Baskin, said hi to him. Jeff Phelps, one of the greatest guys in the business. Talked to Chuck for an hour and a half last night. Bull and Fox, 2 great guys. Ken Carmen's one of my good friends. It's just all these guys who are over there at the Fan I really enjoyed. It's just I didn't have an issue. I had a little bit of an issue with management.
It's a bit of a pressure cooker over there too, because it does feel like it does feel like there's a lot of pressure in that place, just as everybody's trying to figure out what the way forward is.
Nobody knows though. That's the problem. Is the morale at that place was always kind of so-so. It was
and they're undoubtedly in a transitional period right now. You know, they let Booms go and Kiley sticks around, and that whole thing is let's just say awkward.
Well, one of the problems was
because everybody's just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah, and we all know what the next shoe to drop is. It's just a matter of time.
It's the weirdest thing to like just have it persist and nobody really address it. Like everyone's talking about it, but nobody's really addressing it, and they're just like, oh, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things, and you know me, and you and I were longtime O&A fans.
Oh, yeah.
And
Opie and Anthony have, like, pretty much colored everything that I've ever wanted to do in radio. It was Stern before that. Mm-hmm. I've always told people that when I was a young lad on my Sony Walkman, I was scanning through the channels one day, and I heard Howard Stern interviewing Flava Flav.
Okay.
And I was on the bus on my way to 8th grade at West Geauga Middle School. And from that point, I started taping, so I had the automatic tape deck, which record one side and then onto the other. And so I would get 90 minutes of Stern plus including commercials per day. Yeah. And then, but from there, I moved to Boston. It was O&A, Opie and Anthony.
Oh, on WAAF?
It was I missed most of the WAAF, but I caught when they came back.
Did you listen to Hillman?
I did not listen to the Hillman.
He's a douchebag.
But I did listen to the other guy that they always made fun of.
Rocco? Yeah, Rocco was on MMS for a bit.
Yeah.
Rocco, dude! But Rocco had his... do you remember the Rocco and Birdsey story? Tom Birdsey was his co-host. Well, the reason he was his co-host was Rocco goes on the air and on AAF and says... Dude, I'm going to be at the Red Sox game at Fenway, and I'm buying one ticket, and the guy who sits next to me is going to be my co-host.
Oh, no.
And then, sure enough, Tom Birdsey ends up becoming his co-host, who just so happened to be a longtime radio guy.
That cheesy radio bit.
Rocco's dead, though.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Not surprised, though.
But so I was going to say about Opie and Anthony, like in my old age, now that they've broken up, and I kind of feel like they were a bad influence on me.
They're bad, boy.
Now I feel like I had a decade plus of ultra negativity and anger that I probably would have been better off without.
I'm raising my hand. That's where I get it from.
But do you think that it's been a wasted time?
No,
or not a wasted time. But do you sometimes wonder if your life would have been better if you hadn't taken to the dark negative side?
Not at all.
Because I even feel like Opie sometimes regrets it now, and that's not what he wants to do.
No,
but I got 9 years on you, so I'm a little bit older.
True, yeah, but because I grew up, and the reason I got into radio, and I'm doing stand-up because I enjoy doing stand-up, but I'm a radio guy.
And we all got introduced to stand-up via Opie and Anthony with Jim Norton and Bill Burr and Patrice O'Neill and and Bob Kelly and Rich Voss, who... let's do a plug.
Yeah, hey, why not? You like how we kind of shoehorn these in here. Yes, October 23rd at the Funny Style Comedy Club.
All plugs are shoehorned.
Absolutely.
That's the nature of a plug.
Just wait till my second plug. I'm going to have to really insert that one creatively.
All right, go ahead.
But October 23rd, 2 shows at the Funny Stop, Rich Voss down in Cuyahoga Falls. I am emceeing for it, so you get to hear me and the very inappropriate because it's Rich Voss, and I got to get it's what the crowd wants, right?
Yeah.
Well, I got to make a lot of, I don't even know if I could curse on this, but whatever.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, a lot of male genitalia jokes.
Yeah. But that's a big deal. Rich Voss is for as much crap as he takes on O&A, like he's a legit, serious, well-renowned,
he's a fantastic
professional comedian.
He's a fantastic comic, and we were talking about Howard, and you're introduced to a lot of these guys growing up, and Artie Lang, and just listening to them in the 80s and 90s, and obviously I came around I think Howard came to Cleveland on 98.5 in 92. It was 92 because that's when the Jeff and Flash era started going away. And
that would have made sense because I think I would have heard him for the first time in 93. I think I was an 8th grader in 93.
I was in preschool in 92.
Yeah,
and my parents were driving me to school at St. Pius Preschool over in Bedford, and they loved Howard. And so we'd be in there, and when they'd have Daniel Carver, the KKK guy, and talking about, all this, and my mom's like, I'm going to turn the radio off now.
Yeah.
I'm going to put WDOK on. But I was introduced really young, and then we just met Gilbert Gottfried a week and a half ago, and it was just, geez. I mean, I grew up listening to Gilbert on Howard and how great it was, and really
Gilbert is that was like one of the best stand-up shows I ever went to back when I lived in Boston. My friends and I went on a night, and I was probably 20. I don't think I was drinking age yet, but we sit there, and it was one of those nights where half the crowd was not really there to see him, and he cleared the room.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Except for my friends and me. He cleared 3 tables that night.
Because they probably were expecting Gilbert the parrot
from
Aladdin. The parrot
from Aladdin, and he went on a 30-minute, what I believe was a completely unplanned bit about Indians and how they hand out the dots in India, the dots on your forehead. And I think he specifically went into that entire thing, and I'm not here co-signing it, but I'm pretty sure he went through that whole thing just to clear out one specific table.
Oh, absolutely.
That wasn't laughing. And then the last 20 minutes, he did napkin origami. He made like swans and then proceeded to have them fly through the air and make caw sounds.
That's Gilbert for you.
He cleared another 2 tables.
Oh my God!
It was one of the greatest nights we ever had in a comedy club.
There have been 4 comics that I have seen where I've literally been like on the floor or like on the other person I'm with laughing that hard. One of them was Gilbert, and my girlfriend's next to me. I'm laughing so hard at some of he does his dirty jokes at the end, and do all these other things. And the other one was Patrice O'Neill. Mm-hmm. One of the classics, because I saw Patrice a year before he died, and this was after,
I only ever saw him at the Virus Tour.
I saw that too.
Giant.
Yeah, that was 2006. I was there too.
It's hard to get the real vibe of a comedian in that setting.
Yeah, he did do the angry pirate joke, which was a classic. But Patrice, this was right after LeBron left, and he was making fun of the Gloria James Delonte West rumors. And he did something. He was like, "So what are you going to do with the LeBron out now? Who's going to do the chalk toss? Mo Williams and does the chalk toss, and Antoine Jameson's coughing, and
it's all funny now."
Otto and George was another one that I saw, and that was at the same show.
Yeah,
because he ends the show with "What's black and sits at the top of a staircase? Christopher Reeve in a house fire." And my buddy Dan and I were on the concrete at Tower City Amphitheater laughing so hard. It was the funniest thing.
And those are the kinds of laughs that you have to look at the people you're with just to check and make sure like they're not going to burn your house down for laughing.
Oh, I don't care.
I know you don't care, and I don't actually care either. But that's that style of joke.
You're married, you have a kid, you have kids and everything, so you're more responsible. And me, I'm not. I'm a single. I'm not married single guy.
But I guess my real point is a lot of people, and not me and you, but a lot of people would want jokes like that stricken. That's not funny. How dare you? How could a paraplegic ever be funny? Somebody in a wheelchair is not funny ever. You can't joke about that.
Well, that was the Patrice thing when he went on Fox News the one time, and they said, "Have you heard a funny rape joke?" He's like, "Yeah, I've heard a couple." And it's like, you think rape is funny? He's like, "Yeah, I've heard some funny rape jokes." He's like, "I have diabetes. I'm dying of diabetes right now, but I'll still laugh at some jokes."
It's
just, what the thing is about stand-up that's interesting nowadays is, and I'm a critic on a lot of stand-up comedy now that I'm doing it, and I see how people kind of just like people like Nikki Glaser, who is decent, but she's trying to ride Amy Schumer's coattails and be Hollywood, and there are others that are just, when I see an act like a Kevin Hart. And why that it bothers me to see that. And knowing the backstory with Kevin Hart, where he was struggling for a long time. He was one of those the Comedy Cellar in New York comics that was just doing a 2:30 a.m. show for 5 tourists. And he was doing that for a while until Soul Plane. And then because Shaq liked him and everything, and now he's selling out Quicken Loans Arena 2 shows on a Sunday. And I just hear his comedy, and I'm like, those are just, it's about cadence. It's like it's him yelling and stomping on stage and making funny noises, but there's no material. And that's one of the problems. What frustrates me about guys like Rich Voss, who has very good material and can rip on the crowd better than anyone, is doing the funny stop in front of 25 people.
Well, but this isn't new. I mean, this is like Nickelback selling out basketball arenas while the Much Better Band plays the Grog Shop.
Yeah.
We've been here a million times. The same thing has to be true in stand-up comedy. The same thing has to be true in pop music, in movies, in radio. The coolest niche stuff was never meant to be out in front of a mass audience, and I've come to accept that. But you're right.
I'm coming to accept it now.
Yeah,
I'm just angry all the time because of it. It's why I realized.
And this is my older, more mature self. I've just come to accept it. I get it. It's fine.
I think I was.
My wife and I go to one giant pop show a year now. We saw Taylor Swift this year.
Oh, good. That's
just because
nice.
I want to see the exhibition. I want to see what everybody else thinks is awesome.
I did that with Katy Perry last year.
I went to Katy Perry too,
and then I saw Justin Timberlake.
I didn't see Justin Timberlake. But
I'll give you the funny Justin Timberlake story. Is I get a call.
I'm sure there are many, but you can give me one.
It was I was dating a girl at the time, and I mentioned to her, I said, "Hey, there's a chance I could get tickets to Justin Timberlake tonight because they were from Chuck Booms, and he was supposed to go with somebody, and whoever he was going with didn't show.
Right.
So he's like, I don't need these tickets. You want them?" And I said, "Sure." So I texted her and I said, it sounds like it's good to go." Then I get a call from him saying, "Well, I just have the one ticket. You and Anthony Lima are going." And I'm like, okay. So I'm going to Justin Timberlake with Anthony Lima. So I had to text my girlfriend at the time, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going with Lima. She's like, why? I'm like, don't blame me. I'm going to the concert, and I'm going to enjoy myself. And so, yeah, a lot of people were like, so you didn't take your girlfriend, but you took Lima. And I'm like, it's more complicated than that.
I didn't take Lima.
Oh, we got blitzed, and... what was funny, though, was we were...
Well, be careful what you say. Anthony didn't sign a release for this pod. I'm just kidding.
Well, of course. Yes, indeed. We're there, and
He's still gainfully employed.
Yes, he is. Yeah, he's... Lima's also at that same place where he was like me, and then he had kind of one of those, revelation talking tos going, you can't do that. This isn't Opie and Anthony. You can't do this anymore. And kind of by the time he hit 30, he's like, all right, I got to kind of curb this a little bit. I'm still kind of wild. I have 2.5 years. So
you're saying they beat the life out of Anthony already? Probably.
Well, one of the classics was he made a joke. Remember his Curse Cleveland blog that he did?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, years ago, he did the Curse Cleveland blog where it was kind of a parody and just ripping on things. And he did a Robbie Alomar HIV joke, and his boss is like, delete that tweet now. You better do that. And it was a really funny joke. I
feel like I should delete it from this podcast.
Trust me, I've said some I've said some stuff on Twitter that's still there.
Yeah, I've said some stuff on Twitter too, because you have a tendency to go find it and retweet it like an asshole.
Yes.
What is that all about? Why do you have to do that?
Because I get bored at home. See, this is one thing about.
You can't help yourself but be dickish.
What I do is, see, that's the problem is people think I'm such an asshole. Like, there were people I've met on Twitter.
You retweet everybody's worst moments in the history of social networking.
I know I do.
Yeah.
And, people are like...
Well, the people don't think it. Well, they know it.
But they see that personality. Yeah. It's like going to see the comedian who calls someone the C word in the crowd, and then after the show, it's like, oh, thanks for coming. It's like, wow, why are you nice? You called me the C word during the show.
So you're saying your Twitter is performance art, and we should take it as such.
Absolutely. Oh, I would like to tell the audience, because what I
think
do
you need
is,
a character then.
I do. Did you see me during the game yesterday?
No.
During the game, my live tweets during the Browns game were I did a character. It was almost like the Colin Quinn on Twitter.
Okay.
Where it was, I did the character of, I said, well, Johnny put a lot of mustard on that throw. Let's all relish this.
Oh, gosh.
And people are like, delete your Twitter account. So, but I mean, when I'm on social media and I get bored with whatever I'm doing, I try to do something different. So if I'm bored and I'm not doing anything, I'll go back and go, oh, well, let's see what happened in the news. Oh, Anthony Bennett got let go. Let's go find all the people who tweeted Anthony Bennett is going to be an all-star. This is a great pick by Chris Grant. And just go on that and just make people like, what a douchebag. You're going back through 2 years of tweets? And I'm like, no, I just typed it in and I found it. And because you're stupid enough to put your hot take out there, I'm going to retweet it for everybody in the world.
Everybody's take is a hot take 3 years ago when you find out that something else happens later.
Yeah, I know. It happens.
Well,
but,
it's evil. Who's your audience? That's the question. Who's your audience? Because if your bullshit doesn't have an audience, then you're just being an asshole.
The fact that anyone follows me on Twitter still is amazing. But that's the thing is I've met people in person, like at these tweet ups that we've gone to, and they're like, wow, you're actually a really nice guy. And I'm like, yeah, just because I'm online and saying, hey, Nick Swisher, what a bum he is. He sucks. And everyone's like, dude, he's one of us. And then they meet me in person and I'll be like, yeah, I'm not a fan of Nick Swisher. I thought it was a bad move. They're like,
so what you're saying is you have a really short vertical, so you set the bar low so you can jump over it.
Yes, exactly.
I get it.
Yeah, I don't put hot. You notice I don't put hot takes out there. I did today.
Anymore, I bet we could go back and find some.
Some have tried. But the only thing I said is I liked the fact that when the Browns drafted Brandon Weeden, but not if you started him right away. That if you eased him in there, I thought it could have worked. And then, of course, that's been retweeted by a couple people, but it wasn't damning enough, and I was able to squirm out of it too.
When I remember what I said about Anthony Bennett. I think I said something like, "Hey, he looks like a real basketball player. He's a guy who should be able to dribble and shoot and whatever. He's not like that one-dimensional tall guy." But of course it looks stupid now.
Yeah.
The guy couldn't play basketball.
Well, I remember the draft day and I still have the tweet, and I'll occasionally, pat myself on the back for it, is when they had him on the Fan afterward, and I think it was Ken Carman or J.G. Spooner said, who would you compare your game to? And the first thing out of his mouth is Brandon Bass. And I'm like, what?
Oh, no.
The Cavs drafted Brandon Bass 2.0. First overall, and I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be worse than Kwame Brown and Michael Oluwakandi and all these other draft busts, and he's been one of the worst. He might be the worst in the modern era of the NBA. Draft bust.
Easily. I
mean, it's been, but of course, it's Cleveland, and we decide that we try and get behind these ugly ducklings.
Well, no, but it's not our fault. We can't. You and I do not have enough information to say that Justin Gilbert is a bust before he's drafted. We don't have enough information to say Anthony Bennett's a bust before he's drafted.
Well, you're not like one of those draft nerds who's on YouTube and say, "Well, I saw his game film," and the Armani Bryant people.
But even the draft nerds on YouTube can't figure it out. This is what I figured about training camp this year. I said you can't go to training camp and watch you can't answer that question by watching training camp.
Yeah.
And people want to go to training camp and see if they can find that nugget that'll give them the secret to whether the Browns or this player is going to be good or not. It's not available.
They saw Terrell Pryor, fans saw Terrell Pryor in media catching a one-handed pass when he wasn't covered by anyone and go, that's it. He's our guy. That's our receiver right there. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what happened? He got cut? Yeah, it's because you can't make the team in the cold tub.
Well,
hey, he must have Buckeye leaves on that cold tub, though. I got to tell you.
What about
he gets us? He's one of us.
What about the four tight ends that they kept and the this, that, and the other? I mean, that's a real source of frustration if you want to look at. Potential versus the record isn't with the Browns selecting the right guys to keep and cut.
No, it's certainly not. But
especially when their GM's suspended for I almost said tweeting, but texting.
He didn't grossy that. But he, the problem is, we looked at that with Josh Lenz when he got cut. And everyone's like, Josh Lenz got cut. Are you kidding me?
Not everyone. There's a huge difference between Terrell Pryor and Josh Lenz.
Well, true, but the problem is where Terrell Pryor went to school. And everyone's going to, if Terrell Pryor went to, insert college here, you wouldn't think anything about him. You go, well, okay, well, he's trying to get in the position.
Well, I'm going to make the argument.
I'm
going to make the argument just because even though we don't have that kind of tape on Terrell Pryor, we do have tape of him outrunning the entire Steelers secondary. He has outrun entire NFL defenses like recently. So he's got to learn. Again,
a Cleveland team, not even just the Browns, a Cleveland team trying to reinvent the wheel. Well, wait. I know he was a quarterback, but guys, I have a great, grandiose idea. How about receiver? Yes, sounds great.
Well, but it's not a grandiose reinventing the wheel idea when it's Antoine Randall or what's the dude the dude in New England.
Edelman,
who nobody remembers used to be a quarterback, but yeah. So I mean, it's not exactly
No, but I mean,
the craziest thing in the world.
But I mean, it's Josh Cribbs too. Josh Cribbs was a quarterback at Kent State, and he threw one pass.
So what you're saying is that there's precedent for Terrell Pryor, and that the Browns should have kept him. Got it. That's fine. We'll move along. We'll move along.
OH.
Yeah, I don't do that.
You don't do the Swisher OH?
No. Why would I?
I don't know.
I didn't.
He was great. I think I retweeted something you said.
No, I didn't.
No, that was way before they signed him. I did this to Craig. I retweeted something Craig said. I'd like to see the Indians get a power hitter like Nick Swisher to put in the middle of the order and hit 30 home runs.
And do you remember what else I said?
No.
For $8 or $9 million.
That is true, because you did defend that, and I'll say
for half
I agree.
The damn money.
I agree, and that was the problem was when I was at the Fan when the Nick Swisher thing was happening, and when I saw Josh Hamilton went to the went from the Rangers to the Angels, which that kind of made me scratch my head, and I'm like, well, I mean, you don't usually re-sign, you don't sign players within the division, the first name I thought of was Jason Worth. How Jason Worth hasn't been much of anything since he went from the Phillies to the Nationals, and I'm like, oh boy, that means it's probably down to Cody Ross or Nick Swisher. And the fans were like, he's a Buckeye, you got to get him. You saw how many home runs he's hit. He was an all-star.
And nobody knows anything about baseball Buckeyes, so that it's even more ludicrous.
Who was the last J.B. Shuck?
I don't know.
That was about it. J.B. Shuck.
I shouldn't know J.B. Shuck's name.
Well, that's because he's just another one of those typical Chris Antonetti signings in September, like putting Chris Jimenez or Michael Martinez or seeing Abraham Almonte get picked off first base.
I'm embarrassed just hearing you say those names.
But
and you didn't do it.
Well, that was the thing with Swisher, and I was at the Fan at the time, and of course, Dustin Fox went to Ohio State, and they asked him to be a part of this, and they rolled out the old scarlet and gray carpet for him. And I'm like, this guy, okay, if you're going to sign him to a 2-year Carlos Beltran-like deal, like
sure,
$10 million a year, 2 years, maybe 3, I will say 2 years, maybe a player's option for a third year. Nothing more than what I'm saying. And sure enough, $15 million a year, 5-year deal. It was just ridiculous. And everyone's like, what? You don't think that's a good signing? And you're just a Buckeye hater. And I'm like, no, the guy was protected in the lineup. He was bound to get injured, which he has, and he has been constantly injured. And you're only signing him because it's a public relations stunt. And I said this on the air at the time when they signed him, you're only signing him because if he stinks, he's going to get a little leeway, because if he does the OH and doing all and putting out Buckeye T-shirts and everything at the games and playing Hang On Sloopy in the 8th inning, and the fans will eat it up, which they did
I just
until
couldn't
this year.
deal with the bro thing.
It was an act, too.
I never bought into the bro thing.
It's because it was an act.
The only funny part of the bro thing was when Mike Polk had him do those videos.
Yeah, that was
funny. But that's Mike Polk.
I think
he's funny. He's funny when he's talking about long snappers. So.
Absolutely.
All right, man. We've gone a long time, and I feel like we could go for another hour.
We certainly can.
But
anything else you want to ask about radio? What I'm doing now?
No. So you left. Let's see. What else did I have on my list? So you left 92.3.
He wrote a list for me.
And
how about that?
And you say you left under your own free will of 92.3. I know.
No, I got fired.
You got fired?
I got fired.
Okay.
Because I was running the board, and Bull and Fox run remote.
Because I honestly have no idea. Nobody told me anything. It
was a weird situation because the day I was let go was actually the day of the Giambi game when he hit the home run. So while everybody in the city was happy, and I'm like, I lost my job. And what happened was because that was a Tuesday, and on the previous Friday, Bull and Fox run remote, and when they're in studio, They're the ones who usually had the control of the dump button that was nearby. Well, Bull is arguing with a caller or something, and Ken Carmen's in the studio, and Chris Fillar's in the studio, and all these people, they're talking really loud, and a caller apparently said the word shit, and I didn't hear it. And Andy Roth calls me up and says, "Did you hear this?" And I said, "No, there was too many people in the room. I did not hear it. I had headphones on, too. I still couldn't hear it." And so the whole weekend left me to stew a little bit. Monday.
Isn't it great when they leave you hanging out to dry?
Oh my God, it was the worst. Well, because I was DJing. I was DJing that night, and that was all I'm thinking about. Was I could come in Monday and lose my job. And I come in Monday, and Andy Roth plays it back for me. And I said, I have no recollection of hearing that. And he's like, well, we'll go from there. We'll see what happens. So I worked that day. And then the next day, it's like, hey, can you come with me and take your stuff with you? And I'm like, oh boy, really? I mean, I was making $10 an hour. It wasn't much money. And honestly,
and let's be honest. We're sitting here on a podcast, okay? We're talking about the word shit.
Yes.
It's not that big of a deal.
Don't go for that kind of language.
I mean, it's 2015. Did you watch the MTV Video Music Awards?
Well, yeah.
Or at least see the YouTube highlights.
They didn't get, well, I'll tell you this one. They didn't get one complaint. Not one person complained. They just wanted a reason to get rid of me, which they did. They found their reason. It really wasn't ultimately the reason, but they're like, okay, we need to have something on the record to part ways. So I went through a little stretch where I wasn't doing anything. And that's why I got into stand-up comedy. But I was doing a podcast for Yahoo Sports Radio, which didn't find out until it was brokered. And then they were like, yeah, we're not doing brokered podcasts anymore. So I'm like, all right, well, that sucks. What am I going to do next?
Who are you doing that with?
John Cupo.
Okay. I don't know who that is.
He was a Cleveland guy who's barely done radio in Cleveland.
Okay.
Because of what I mentioned earlier about program directors saying cut your teeth elsewhere. So I was giving tours at the Christmas Story House.
Okay.
I mean, I was doing anything I can just to try and get a paycheck, and I was going through a whole. I was working for a software company. I don't know the first thing about software. I barely know anything about HTML, and they're telling me to help build apps. And I'm just like, God, I gotta. And that's when I started doing stand up because it was just the worst.
You were DJing too.
I was DJing in crummy little bars like South Euclid. I was DJing AppleBee's.
I always saw you make jokes about DJing AppleBee's, and I didn't know if you were actually serious. You were DJing AppleBee's.
It was 100% serious.
So what does that entail? How do you DJ AppleBee's?
It was karaoke, and what I would do is
and how did the Apple buddies treat you?
They were great.
Okay.
I got free food, and all the people there were a bunch of drunks. And I would go there with the mobile DJ equipment.
They always strategically place an AppleBee's next to like a hotel that somebody stays in out of business so that they can stumble back to their hotel after they're done drinking at the AppleBee's bar.
Yep, and it's
not that I'm speaking from experience.
I did the AppleBee's. I did Avon. I mostly did the Westgate Rocky River one, Lyndhurst.
All right, what does that pay? How much do you make in a night? DJing AppleBee's.
I made $60.
Okay.
I was doing that for a little bit, and I DJed AppleBee's for an entire year, and actually it was a better gig, and it was one of my better DJ gigs. I did some bad ones. I did some ones where there were fist fights and cops were called in and everything.
So is that just you and your iPod, or you got a system?
No, I had a whole mobile DJ system.
Okay.
It wasn't mine. I was working for a company at the time, and so I pack all this stuff in there, go into the AppleBee's.
So they actually charge AppleBee's more than that, and that's just your cut.
Yes, that's my cut.
Wow.
So I would unplug the jukebox that they had going on, and then I'd play my own music, and I'd hook up with a cord to get the karaoke on.
So you're
the
like
screen.
a vibe manager.
I was. I mean, at least I got free food. That's all I know. And then, but the best DJ gig I did was at Bounce.
I don't know Bounce.
It's a gay bar.
All right, is this one going to get me in trouble? Are you going to be nice?
No, I am going to be nice because it was my best gig. And what was interesting?
Because I'd really prefer the gay community not hate me for this podcast.
No, seriously, this was my favorite gig of doing.
Yeah.
And because the gay men that were in the audience would come up and they would sing beautifully, like it would just be like your tears coming down your eyes,
like an angel, yeah,
like an angel. And then it was so weird because like they were there, and then like I knew the bartender because he was a bartender at AppleBee's when I would DJ there, and he would come up to me and he'd request songs. And there was another guy who came up and he was like, hey, are you straight? And I said, yeah. And he's like, damn, well, hey, Hey, my name is Zach, by the way, and I mean, if you want to come over and play Xbox or something,
names changed to protect the innocent.
No, his name.
Yes,
his name is Zach.
No, it wasn't.
Are you sure? Because I still have his phone number
in
my wallet.
You could have just pretended like you changed the name to protect the innocent.
Yeah, but I didn't say if it's a CH, a K, a C. It depends on what it was. There's a lot of.
Fair enough.
I'm sure there's a lot of gay men named Zach.
Yeah,
so,
that's
it could
probably
be
true.
Very ambiguous. But I did that for a little.
So you
bit.
got his number.
Yeah, and
Congratulations.
I still have his number. That was 2 years. That was a year and a half ago.
So what did he say when you called him?
I didn't
Get
give
it?
him my number.
Boom.
Call me maybe. But yeah, so I was DJing for a little bit, and then I just needed to do something, and I started doing stand-up. I met Bob Levy last year. He told me to do it. Kevin Pollak was really nice. Rich Voss, I met him again. I've seen Voss a bunch of times, and I decided to start doing it. And Booms got me at the Improv to do a show, and it took me a little bit to get the courage to go back up because I did an open mic, and I didn't realize all the open mics were a bunch of comics who just look at their phones and laugh at each other's jokes.
Right.
All the inside jokes, and I'm here like, I had jokes that killed at the Improv, and I'm here and doing this, and they're like, boy, what time is it? When's my set going to be up? And I'm like, oh, geez. So it kind of spooked me for a little bit, but then I
and I go to these musicians' nights where the songwriters play 3 songs, and there are 10 of them, and they all are really supportive, and they clap for each other. Comedians are not like that.
No, they only laugh at...
They prefer to watch each other die.
It depends. If they're friends, then they'll just laugh at each other's jokes.
Okay.
Like, they'll be doing a bunch of inside jokes that I'm sitting there going, how is that funny?
Yeah.
But they're slapping the tables and thinking everything is just hilarious.
Yeah. That guy's Steve we met. He is a douche.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand your joke.
So I was doing that for a bit, and then now that I'm working back on the radio again, I'm getting a lot more stage time and, hanging out with people and doing all my gigs and, going out to wonderful towns like Garretsville, which, by the way, I'm doing a show there in Garretsville.
Yeah.
See how I told you I was going to slip that
That's
promo
good.
in there.
I like it.
Garretsville, Ohio at Slim and Jumbo's, it's called, October 7th. It's with Chad Zumock and Jim Florentine. We're going to be doing this, and it's going to be great. Jim Florentine's going to be here.
Yeah, and that's obvious. That's definitely going to be a great night of comedy.
It'll be fun.
Florentine and Zumock kill, and we'll find out about you.
Yeah, I'm still wondering what's going on with me, but it'll be a great night.
All right, well, let's put a lovely bow on the podcast.
Absolutely.
What in the world are you doing now? Because I don't know which station.
I'm down in Akron on 1590 WKNR. And I produce the morning show. I cover the Browns for them, so I'm at the Browns games. I do stuff on Jeff Kinsbach's show with the Browns and, tell some jokes on his show on 97.5 WONE. So I'm doing a lot of that kind of stuff and still doing the stand-up comedy. So I'm living in Tremont right now. It's a 35, 40-minute drive to work every morning at the crack of dawn. Let's see.
Well, at least there's no traffic.
There is no traffic.
Should be a lovely winter.
Oh, boy. Well, especially when you're going down 77 and you're just fishtailing on all the way down there. So.
When you're out before the plows, and you are,
trust me,
some shit.
Trust me, when I'm when I'm working and I hear the sound of the paper landing on the front porch of somebody's house, and it's like, yeah, you're up pretty early here.
This only happens a couple days a week now, though, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
are they still only delivering?
It would have been a better joke if I knew which days they weren't delivering.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know. My dad still wants the paper every day. He's like, oh, I gotta get the paper. I might as well get the paper every day. Why? Go on. Dad, you have a smartphone. You can scroll through Twitter. You saw all the news. You saw everything you need to be offended by in one day.
My parents converted to tablets. I think
really, so
anybody
they've upgraded.
can. I think anybody can, because you can read the paper every day if you just can commit to the tablets.
You can. It's just my dad's still old school. He wants the vinyl, which of course that's not old school anymore. That's
if he was really old school, he'd take 8 tracks.
Yeah. He's like, hey, Tony, you need to give me a social media lesson. What, Dad? What do you want? And he's like, how do you go on Facebook?
It'd be really funny if he said, I want to go back in the archives and tweet embarrassing tweets of other people. He'd be like, oh my God, we are family.
Dad, absolutely.
Let me teach you how.
Thank you, Dad. I know a thing or two about a thing or two. And he's like, is that, how do you get to Facebook? I'm like, Dad, just go there. And he's like, can I just go to Google and type in Facebook? Is that, or do I have to go to the www thing?
Oh no.
Dad, Just say Facebook. It'll pop up on the computer.
Ask Siri.
Yeah, ask Siri. Yeah. Well, he doesn't even know what Ask Jeeves is. So yeah. I don't know. All right. They've come a long way, though.
Well, I'm glad I'm glad we were able to get it together and have you on the podcast. This was a lot of fun.
I'll shamelessly promote another date.
Give me the one that if nobody showed up to anything but this one date, you'd want them to show up to that one. Then it better not be Applebee's.
Let's go the Rich Voss one.
Okay.
We'll go Rich Voss, October 23rd at the Funny Stop in Cuyahoga Falls. And I'm sure next time I come on, I'll be able to promote another weekday gig.
Yeah,
hey, I'm at Frank's Bar and Grill on Tuesday. It's a free show. Come on out, and I think they have $3 cherry bombs that night. Come on out.
So I always think these podcasts like humanize people. I've had Hiram on, and people are like, "Hey, he's not so bad." When you give him
Hiram, by the way, Hiram looks like a mix between Cuba Gooding Jr. and Franco Harris.
You make me nervous whenever you start talking like that.
Why?
I don't know.
I'll give you the Hiram story. Hiram used to call into my show on DSN, and I said, Hiram, your takes are, I don't agree with them, but you should start a Twitter account.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, I'll start it. So he tweeted 5 times, and he called again on a Sunday, and I'm like, Hiram, you got to start tweeting more. I want to see what you're going to post. You need to start tweeting more.
Yeah.
And as of right now, doing this podcast, I'm pulling up Hiram's Twitter account.
And by the way, I've hung out with Hiram. He and I have watched MMA together.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Hiram has 390,381 tweets. And it's my fault.
Yeah.
Because I told him to start tweeting more. I should just tell him to stop tweeting. Maybe he will stop. I don't know.
I think he's too addicted now.
I would say so.
So anyway, my question.
Yes.
What do you have any hopes or aspirations for what people are going to get out of this from hearing you talk or at all, or do you just not care?
No, it's kind of like what you're hearing right now is a physical incarnation, I guess, of my Twitter account is what you're hearing. Me complain about...
Wait. So this was an act? This was a personality?
No, that's what I do. See, that's the problem is when I get into this mode and my girlfriend's like, stop. Like, because what I do... You
can't turn it off, though.
I can't.
I used to be this way.
I know. I'm not the only one. It's where you provoke a reaction out of somebody. Yeah. And I do that on stage, and I rip on some guy or something, or I say the most offensive joke possible. I've had some pretty bad ones. Keith Kennedy actually told Ray, the guy I do the show with, saying, Tony's horrible on stage. He's like, really? He's not good? He's like, no, he's a good comic, but his sense of humor is so brutal.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I can't. Sometimes I have problems turning it off, and it pisses my girlfriend off, pisses my family off.
Well, and you gotta have a stomach for it. I found that I was really good and people would be like, Craig, you never like that. I was like, no, I was never like that publicly, but like I would joke like that with my wife and on car rides and like I couldn't do it in public. You can do it in public, and you seem to have the stomach for it.
I'm at that point where, like, because a lot of people appreciate that I can do this, because there's a lot of radio people that are like,
yeah, it takes a certain level of psycho.
It really does. I know. I'm completely. I've come to the conclusion that I'm going to.
And I just got a thumbs up from the girl who hangs out with you.
Yes, I've come to the conclusion I'm going to die at 35. And I'm always going to be youthful and everything.
Well, let me tell you, by the time you get to 35, you're going to be really sad that you're not going to live to 70.
Exactly.
The older you get, I remember being 18 and going, if I made it to like 42, I think it'd be a good run. Mm-hmm. And now I'm 36 and I'm going, man, if I died at 50, it'd be the worst thing in the world. I gotta live to at least 70. Yeah. And then by the time I'm 64, I'm gonna go 70. That's not anywhere near enough. And you always scream at yourself.
Of course.
So don't hurry up and die at 35.
But what's interesting, I'm only 27, and I feel like I've lived a lot of lives, and I've done a lot in the business. And honestly, I rip on the business a lot, whether it's radio, stand-up comedy, but it's actually coming from a passion, and I would like that. There's a lot of talent in stand-up. There's a lot of talent on the radio.
You do have a weird sense of artistic integrity. Toward this whole like radio everything. And comedy
and music too. And you and I, we saw Jay Mascis together last year, which was great. But
and for the record, Booms did not give us those tickets so that we could go to Jay Mascis
No,
together.
he didn't. I was going to bring a girl, but I decided to just go with Craig.
We randomly just saw each other.
But I do have a thing, and I was actually talking to my mom because my mom's an artist, and that's where I get it from, the creative side. My dad's a very verbal guy.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the dick jokes.
No, I'll even get my parents going, all right, no more jokes. No, come on. But I do have that artistic integrity where when I see somebody selling out or something like that, I need to detach myself from that feeling of being upset by it. But I'm my own person. If you're going to hire me for a job, if you're going to do something, you're going to get me. Like, you're not going to get parts of me. Like,
right.
I'll decide what parts I'm going to showcase. That's the weird part of my multiple personalities. So.
Well, and this is also what happens when
it's like Sybil.
When somebody chooses Opie and Anthony as their mentor from afar.
Did you get a chance to meet them, by the way?
No.
That's one of the classic pictures. I got Opie, Anthony, and Jimmy.
Oh, that's crazy!
Right there, all together. I think I had highlights in my hair at the time. It was just such a little douchebag. I'm still a douchebag, but I was a younger, And
now there's pretty much no chance you'll ever get that photo again.
No, I just have to superimpose that, and Although I will say, I still do listen to Anthony's show.
Yeah,
I think Anthony's show is much better than Opie and Jimmy.
See, you're divisive as ever.
I'm burnt. How many bridges have I burned today?
I don't know.
I'm trying to figure it out.
Actually, it wasn't that bad.
Not that bad?
I don't think so.
No, it's
you're pretty hard on yourself too. So I think people take it the right way.
Oh yeah, I mean I'll rip on everybody else, but I'm as hard as. I'm just as hard on myself, if not worse. So I kind of dish it out equally. I don't consider myself up on this plateau.
When I stop dishing it out, because I know I can't take it, so I'm a sensitive boy. Always been a sensitive boy.
You're very bashful.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've tried to end this thing 3 times, and we just keep talking because we keep talking, and it's fun to talk.
It's what happens when you deal with a radio guy who likes the sound of his own voice.
I know.
I hate my voice.
We'll just do it again some other time.
Why not? I'll promote more weekday gigs.
So, all right. Thanks for coming out. And until next time, everybody, this has been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.
Waiting for next year.